Hi, it's Shoshanna from my home in Melbourne, Australia, and this is going to be a very brief overview of the Wuhan lab leak theory for dummies. And it's a very complicated story, but what I'm doing is some very short notes so that you can get an overview and a general idea of what this is about. And first, I want to explain why I think it's really important to understand it. We have spent almost 2 years having our human rights, freedoms trampled, our lives shattered, people losing their lives, their livelihoods, and their sanity. And we were told that this was a natural event, that this virus just happened naturally in nature, that it was nothing that anyone can be blamed for. But now the truth is coming out. So I'm going to give some brief overview. You can read about it more and you can hear about it more, but this is a way that you can understand it in a very simple way, boiled down to some facts that you can explain to others as well. So we all know who this guy is, Dr. Anthony Fauci. If you don't know who he is, then you've been living under a rock. And he is the head of the National Institute of Health in America. And you've heard of this. If you've been paying any attention to the news, this term being used is gain of function research. Well, what is gain of function research? Very simply, it's research where they take viruses that are already a little bit dangerous and they make them more dangerous, they make them more potent, they weaponize them. Fact is that the United States of America has been funding gain of function research, and through Dr. Fauci from the National Institute of Health since 2015. So basically, the United States has been working with the Chinese communists to make viruses more dangerous. And what happened was that the COVID-19 virus escaped a lab in Wuhan where this gain of function was being conducted. Was it accidental? We don't know for sure. We started hearing about deaths in Wuhan, China, which soon spread throughout the world, and the rest we know. Panic ensued. Governments and politicians took advantage. They grabbed power wherever they could. We had confusion, authoritarianism, medical tyranny, and the rest, as they say, is unfortunate, sad history. Now, some interesting facts. The Wuhan lab from which this virus escaped is 5.5 meters from the wet markets. You know what the wet markets are. That's where everyone says the virus came from. Now, there is a powerful cabal of virologists. There's lots of them. I can't name them all, but know these names. Dr. Fauci, of course, who you know. Peter Daszak, who's the head of the Eco Health Alliance. Powerful, powerful people who were funding and doing this research. What we have to understand that these scientists, this is their life. This is what they do. They study infectious diseases. Their entire career is based on this. If their reputations are sullied, or if it's found out that they did something that's corrupt or scandalous, not only are their careers over, their entire endeavor for their whole life and their entire industry is probably very, very compromised. So they have to protect themselves. So this cabal of virologists had to come up with a cover story where they wouldn't be blamed, because they know that because they were making these viruses more dangerous and they were in laboratories that weren't very safe. There were several laboratories in Wuhan, and the one that it escaped from had the safety standards that were equivalent to an American dental clinic, which is not very safe when you're dealing with viruses that can kill masses of people. So they knew this. They knew that they had to deflect blame away from themselves, or their lives would be, their careers would be, their reputations would be finished. So they came up with this story, which is, I call it the baddie cover story. The baddie cover story is a conspiracy that they made up a lie that this virus came from animal to human transmission from the wet markets. Now, there's lots of reasons why we know this isn't true, or indications strongly that's not true, which you can research yourself. Now, you've probably heard of this. The Lancet scientific journal It is the most prestigious journal in science in the world. And Peter Daszak, who is one of the cabal of virologists and has the Eco Health Alliance, he was behind an article that was published in the Lancet journal back in 2019, which put forth the baddie cover story. Also said in that journal article that whoever didn't believe this baddie cover story, that it came from that site called the baddie cover story, would be a conspiracy theorist. So these cabal of virologists, their reputation and their careers were under threat. So they all fell in line. And not only that, but there's been testimony from anybody who dissented that they were intimidated and threatened, and they even had death threats. So they fall in line with the baddie theory because they're being intimidated. And also because some people just go along with the crowd and they were probably just lazy. Now, the next thing that happens is the cabal colludes with digital media. Because the cabal and digital media have similar goals that overlap. It's sort of like a perfect storm, I would say. What's the cabal of virologists' goal is to shut down the inquiry, to shut down all inquiry into this because they need to deflect blame away from themselves. And what does the digital media have as its goals? Well, its goals, most of them, well, they're all left-wing oriented. Their goal is the same as the Democrats and the left wing, and that was, at the time, to make sure they got Trump out of office. They had to get him out of office. That was their complete obsession. So the goals of these virologists and of the digital media, the Democrats, and also the Communist Chinese Party also didn't want the truth to get out. These goals intercepted, and they colluded. And what was their solution? To shut down the truth, to shut down inquiry, to shut down the entire world, to shut down the entire world economy. That solved so many of their problems. It got rid of Trump, some of his people were already questioning the baddie cover story, and they wanted that finished. And it also helped the social media to continue their censorship of anything that could show that Trump might be right, because they also wanted to get down Trump. And it covered the rear ends of the powerful cabal that were responsible for all this. That's part one. We'll get into part two next time. Thank you.